Clinch work is the name of the game for Johnny Hendricks versus Mike Pierce. Not a lot else to say really. It was all clinching, and sometimes it was a case of clinching and they were doing very, very well, and sometimes it was a case of clinching and they were doing about as much as a wrestler lying on a stand-up artist when they're on the ground. So what was interesting was that obviously both had a detailed knowledge of some of the rules regarding knees and stuff like that. For example, when Johnny Hendricks kept getting falling into some sort of guillotine attempt whilst he was in the clinch, he would make sure that he was in a position where he was classed as being down, so that nobody could, his opponent, Mike Pierce, couldn't use knees. And Mike Pierce obviously understood that, because every time he did that, Mike Pierce let go of the hold. Presumably, because there was no point in. I presume his idea was, well, something him with knees until he quits in this hold. But Johnny Hendricks was one step ahead of that. Unfortunately, there was a brief stoppage because of some illegal move. It was an up kick from Johnny Hendricks, which unfortunately means I can't actually give Johnny Hendricks the man of the match here, which I may well have done otherwise. Ivan Menjivar, another person who I thought I might be able to give my Man of the Card award to, has managed to nullify himself by low blows. Seems to be a common trait. Although I have to say, the one thing that is more exciting on this card is that we're seeing some of the strikers get up, and the wrestlers trying their submissions are still on their backs, you know, trying an RNC or something like that, standing. We had attempts at a standing Kimura in one of the matches. We also had somebody who was, I think it was in this match actually, Ivan Menjivar, was busy trying to get some sort of toe hold while standing, Nick Pace on his back trying to get an RNC. So I won't dispute that the talent is possibly getting more exciting, but I am getting a bit sick of the low blows. I really am. Ivan Menjivar first manages to do it with a leg kick in the first. He comes back in the second, does really, really well. In the third, he's doing it again. He actually manages to injure his eye later on. I think it was a knee from Pace rather than a finger. One almost thinks that he sort of deserved a finger, really, because... But anyway, so he may well have injured his eye, but... no, I'm not going to give it to people who accidentally... and I do think that in the case of the prelims this time, it is all accidents, but it's still low blows, and I hate low blows, and I don't think that they are judged properly, so, you know, let's continue. Chad Mendes and Raniyaha. Actually extremely impressive, especially from Chad Mendes. Unfortunately, Raniyaha just sort of gets, he sort of ricochets really. He comes in, gets bounced off against one of the cage walls, comes in again, gets bounced off another one, and it's a bit like Chad Mendes has some sort of shield that is impenetrable, because you have to remember when you watch this match that Raniyaha is actually very, very good indeed. He's not some idiot with no skill. In the first round, he's trying to get lots of takedowns, and he just doesn't manage it at all. He ends up sort of pinging off the cage wall a bit. In the second round, he does get a few takedowns, but it doesn't get him anywhere. And in the third, he's actually getting taken down himself. And again, he's not getting anywhere on the ground. Despite his attempts, he's just not getting anywhere. And he does try, I think, an omoplata at one point. He tries all sorts, but he's just not getting very far. And in the end, ironically, the match ends with him getting taken down and giving up his back to Chad Mendes. But then the final bell goes. So it's a decision victory for Chad Mendes, who looks like if he actually engaged even more, it wouldn't be beyond his ability to finish Rani, which just shows how good he is. Unfortunately, he's not going to win my support for fighter of the card, because guess what he does in the first round? It's the same story on this card. It's even the same move. An inside leg kick, which is just that little bit too high on the body. Dennis Hallman and Brian Ebersole. The first part of the match shows extremely well why Dennis Hallman is very, very dangerous on the ground. He just seemed to transition from one submission to the other. I think it started with an RNC and it ended up with, you know, something else, and he's just moving from one submission to the other. There's no sort of stop and think, what shall we apply next? He literally moves from one to the other. What he doesn't manage to do in this match is survive the ground and pound. You see, it's all very well if he's managing to get submission attempts that stop him being mounted. But if, for example, somebody like Brian Ebersole were to sort of almost accidentally mount him from trying to defend his submissions, and then employ a little bit of ground and pound, Dennis Hallman suddenly finds he doesn't have any way of coping. And that's what happened. And within 4 minutes 28 seconds, you know, Hallman was sort of lying on the canvas, and Brian Ebersole was sitting on top of him going, yeah! So it's all very well being Dennis Hallman, the submission artist, but you do have to be a bit careful to avoid the ground and pound. And then there's Yoshihiro Akiyama, who just didn't last very long, did he? I think it was within the first 2 minutes, Vita Belfort just sort of hit him in the face, and it was like a tree. Timber! And that was the end of him. The main event. And the main event, Tito Ortiz and Rashad Evans. All we need to know is that Tito Ortiz somehow managed to get out of the first round, but wasn't destined to win, and it was probably that was probably a given, really. It was all Rashad Evans. I mean, I don't like him particularly, but there we are. I think it was a knee in the end that finished him off, and because I didn't watch this particular match, I have no idea if he was crying during the result or not. Anyway, this answers the question as to whether Tito Ortiz would be thrown back into the limelight if he won. As he didn't win, that's a moot point now, isn't it? So, my man of the match is going to be Rory MacDonald, because this was the other fight which I thought would be interesting, and for all of about 4 minutes, I think it was reasonable. They were on their feet and they were on the ground, Mike Pyle and Rory MacDonald, but Mike Pyle never really seemed to be anything but a little bit wobbly. I think maybe it all went a bit downhill when he slipped right at the start. Of course, he'd already been sort of plopped on his arse once, but he did slip during the first exchange, I believe. MacDonald basically managed to get him in the end, I think. And Pyle still didn't appear very well after the match, so I hope that he's alright, because I had sort of hoped that he would win, but he didn't, and despite some of the, what I think were possibly better fights earlier on, I'm going to give my Fighter of the Card award to Rory MacDonald, mostly because of the inadequacies of the other people in the prelims who could have won it, but spoilt it by low blows. You know, Rory MacDonald's fight may not have gone on quite as long, but he didn't manage to low blow his opponent, and so he will get the award this time.